Good morning, Grade 7s, and welcome to WorksheetCloud Grade 7 Natural Sciences. If you have a question during this lesson, please send an email with your question to grade7@worksheetcloud.com. Today's lesson is on insulation and energy saving, and my name is Mrs. Hall. I look forward to teaching you this lesson on how to save on energy. So the objectives of our lesson today are as follows. Okay, so firstly, we want to know how is heat energy lost at home. We want to be able to explain the methods of reducing this energy loss in your homes and also to explain how solar water heating panels work. So, let's start off with our main source of heat energy, which comes from the sun in the form of radiation. If we want to keep our homes cool, we must prevent heat from entering the house. But if we want to keep a house warm, we must try to absorb the maximum amount of radiation and trap this heat effectively, which is coming from the sun. So, as you all know, heat is a transfer of energy by conduction, convection, or radiation. Often, we want this energy to be transferred for heating. For example, when you place a heater in a room, you want the energy to be transferred through convection and radiation to the room so that the room becomes warmer. In other situations, you might want to prevent energy transfer. For example, on a cold winter's day, we need to minimize heat loss from the house so that it stays warm. Other objects, such as electric geysers, need to prevent energy transfer to the surroundings so that the water inside the geyser stays warm. Materials which are insulators can slow down or prevent this energy transfer. So, let's take a look at reducing heat transfers, but let's start with the human body. So, as you all know, heat energy is lost from the human body. However, there are ways that these losses can be reduced, especially when it's cold and we want our body to stay nice and warm and cozy. So this is a thermogram of a man, woman, and child not wearing clothes. The white and red parts are the hottest, and so they are losing the most heat. Orange and green represent medium temperatures, and blue and purple are the coldest parts of the body. If you look over here, it is easy to see that the heads of all three people are the hottest parts, followed by their torsos. Their arms and legs show medium temperatures, while their hands and feet are among the coldest parts. It is in these places that we sometimes get frostbite in very cold conditions. So, to reduce heat transfer from our bodies, we can wear insulating clothing such as gloves, scarves, hats, and thermal socks, especially in cold weather. The more layers we wear, the more warm air can be trapped, and the warmer we will remain. Some clothes, such as wool, are excellent insulators because they trap lots of air. How do we reduce the heat transfers in our homes? So as you know, heat energy is lost from buildings through their roofs, through their windows, their walls, their floors, and through gaps around the windows and doors. However, there are ways that these losses can be reduced. Take a look at this thermogram of a house. The roof and the windows are the hottest, showing that most heat is lost from the house through those parts. Okay, there's our diagram of our house. The heat energy is transferred from our homes by conduction through the walls, floor, roof, and windows. It is also transferred from homes by convection. For example, cold air can enter the house through gaps in doors and windows, and convection currents can transfer the heat energy in the loft to the roof tiles. Heat energy also leaves the house by radiation through the walls, the roof, and the windows. Right. Which areas of this house have the best and the worst insulation? Take a look at the diagram. A purely insulated house loses more energy and so costs more to heat. It also means that more pollution, particularly carbon dioxide, is created in order to heat the house. So take a look at this house over here. Take a look at the huge amount of energy that is lost in total per year. 25% through the roof, 35% through the walls, okay, 15% just through the door being open, 10% from the windows being open, and then just 15% just from everyday garage doors, etc. Okay, so if you are trying to keep your house warm in winter and a lot of that energy is lost, your heating bills start costing a lot more money. So, how do we reduce heat loss from our homes? Let's look at a couple of ways. So, simple ways to reduce heat loss include fitting carpets, curtains, and what we call draft excluders. Okay, so the drafts that come in underneath the doors, it's called a draft excluder. Okay, it's normally that long, thin, it looks like a snake. Okay, and your parents put it up against the door at the bottom of the door where the air comes through or the wind comes through. It is possible to fit reflective foil in the walls or on them. Heat loss through windows can be reduced by using double glazing. These special windows have air or vacuum between the two panes of glass. If the double glazing has a vacuum, there will be no conduction or convection because there's no particles, so it cannot be transferred through conduction or convection. Now, double glazing is not used much in South Africa. It's more used overseas in very, very cold climates. If the double glazing is made with air between the glass, then convection is minimized because there is little room for the air to move. Air is a poor conductor, so there will be very little heat loss by conduction. Heat loss through walls can be reduced using cavity wall insulation. This involves blowing insulating material into the gap between the brick and the inside wall. Insulating materials are bad conductors, and so this reduces the heat loss by conduction. The material also prevents air circulating inside the cavity, therefore reducing heat loss by convection. Heat loss through the roof can be reduced by laying loft insulation. This works in a similar way to cavity wall insulation. And in South Africa, it's called Think Pink. So a lot of your parents use Think Pink in their ceilings. Here we have examples, okay, when they're busy building, how they put the insulation between the walls, up in the ceiling. It could be newspaper, it could be Think Pink. Some people even wrap insulating materials around their pipes. And there's your example of your windows with your double glazing. Okay, here we have an example of a draft excluder. You can see them over there at the bottom of the door. It prevents the air from coming under the door. Okay, in between your walls, there is your insulation, your double glazing windows, and inside your house as well. Between different rooms with different panels, you can even put insulation, especially if you live in a home where you want to save on your electricity bills. So, an example of where we want the transfer of energy to take place in some parts of the system, but prevent it in other parts, is a solar water heater. The use of a solar water heater helps to save energy. This is not only because the system is efficient at warming water, but we also use solar power, which is free, gratis, okay? Whereas we pay for electricity from the national grid, and it puts demands on the national demand for electricity. So solar geysers are big in South Africa. So, why are solar water panels black? Okay, think about everything we've learned so far. Obviously, because the black absorbs the heat far better than what they would if it was white. Okay. So, let's take a look at the following diagram over here. It shows the different parts of the solar water heater to which we will be referring. The cold water flows in the cold water intake pipe and then down into the long tubes called evacuated tubes. The water warms up due to energy transfer from the sun, and it then flows into the storage tank at the top, which you can see over there. Okay. When someone wants hot water in the house, the hot water flows out of the hot water output and down into the house. So here we have it in a scientific diagram. We have our water tank over here. Okay, it has an inner tank as well as an outer tank with insulation. We have our cold water intake. We have our hot water output. So once the water's been heated, it comes out there. The frame that holds the solar water heater or geyser. And here we have our evacuated tubes. We have a reflector, okay? And our evacuated tube has an outer tube as well as an inner tube. And we will look at that in more detail now. So, is solar power an example of a renewable or a non-renewable energy source, grade 7s? Think about it. It is a renewable energy source. It will not run out. When the cold water flows down the tubes, energy is transferred to the water from the sun. What type of heating is this? So the energy from the sun into the tubes. What type of heating is this? Is it conduction, convection, or radiation? You know the answer. It is radiation. Okay, direct heat from the sun. In the tubes, part of the system, we want energy transfer to take place. So specific materials are used to make energy transfer as efficient as possible. There is a shiny surface underneath the tubes called a reflector. Remember it from the diagram? How does this help to increase the amount of energy that the water in the tubes receive? Okay, think about it. We've learnt about it. The reflector is a shiny surface, so it does not absorb the heat, but reflects the sun's radiant energy back up and onto the tubes, increasing the amount of energy that the water in the tubes receive. Do you see over here in this diagram that there is a tank at the top to store the hot water. I spoke about it earlier. There was the inner tank and the outer tank with the insulation. In this part of the system, we want to prevent energy transfer to the outside. This tank consists of an inner tank and an outer case. If there were just these two layers made of metal, okay, think about it, how could heat loss from the hot water to the external environment occur? Okay, think about it. By conduction. Okay. However, something has been done to help prevent this transfer of energy. What have they done to help keep the water warm while it is stored? Let's move me out the way there. In between the inner and outer tank, there is a thick layer of insulation. This insulation does not conduct heat. The insulation helps to prevent the transfer of energy to the surroundings by conduction, as the insulation material is a poor conductor of heat. Now let's take a closer look at the evacuator tubes in a solar water heater. Study the following diagram. So there it is for you. The water runs down the central heat pipe. There is an absorber plate below each pipe, and this is enclosed within two layers of tube. Now remember, we have the radiant heat from the sun, and there you have your tubes. Okay, your heat pipe, the vacuum, okay, and the absorber plate. Can you see there is an inner and an outer tube? Between these tubes there is a vacuum. This means that the sun's energy can still pass through to warm the water. However, when the energy is transferred to the water and it warms up, the vacuum prevents energy from transferring back out by conduction or convection, because there's no particles of matter there. Why is this so? Remember our last lesson on conduction and convection and radiation? For energy to be transferred by conduction or convection, it requires a medium, such as air particles. However, there is a vacuum, so it helps to insulate the inner pipe. Do you see that the water at the bottom is cooler, indicated by the blue color, and the water at the top of the tube is warmer, indicated by the red color? When the cooler water moves to the bottom and the warmer water moves to the top, what is this called? Think about it. Is it conduction? Is it convection? Is it radiation? It's a convection current. Do you think the solar water heater is an energy efficient system, and why? Think about it, grade 7s. You know this. You've got this. It is a very efficient system, as all the materials are carefully chosen to either enhance energy transfer or to prevent it, depending on what is needed in that part of the system. This helps to save electricity, as solar power is used to heat water instead of relying on an electrical geyser. It is also cheaper, as solar power is free, except for the installation of the actual solar heater. So when you drive around, take note of people who have solar heaters on their roof. Just some funnies for you. I always love ending off my lessons with a little bit of humor. So the sun is there, and the planets are saying not everything we do revolves around you. And the sun is, well, actually it does. Okay. And here we have something with insulation. The cats love getting some fresh air, and it's the warmest coat I've ever had. Okay, so transferring their body heats. And then you like my novelty draft excluder. And then her friend says, I don't have a novelty draft excluder, but it's not really a draft excluder. It is, you might be get a little fright and think it's really a snake, because they do make them into novelties. Okay, so the snake is lying there. Quite fun. Okay, grade 7s. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. I hope you learned something new. And I look forward to seeing you in our next lesson. Take care, have a great afternoon, and don't forget to download your worksheets to help you consolidate. Thanks for watching, grade 7s.